I have decided to make a character analysis video about every Hello Neighbor character. Today, we are discussing this guy. I will go through each Hello Neighbor build and tell you what this creature is. First and most important fact to know, the thing symbolizes fear itself. Yes, in every storyline. It's not a physical being like the neighbor or the player. It's not something you can touch. It's a symbol. Only those characters can see it who are afraid of something. It doesn't have to be the same thing, it just has to be fear. And that's exactly why the thing can change shape, form, and size. Once it's small, like a man, appearing between the ruins of the neighbor's house, a place that causes Nikki fears. And once it's a giant monster, ready to tear everything apart and destroy Nikki. The thing is fear itself, put into some kind of visual form, but this visual form keeps glitching. It's non-stop changing. The thing, or Shadow Man as some people call it, first appeared in Hello Neighbor Alpha 3 at the end if you look through a keyhole. Alpha 3 was part of the family storyline. The storyline is detailed in this video. It's a completely different storyline from what we have now. Here the neighbor was the player's father, meaning the thing itself was most likely something else too. Its core of being fear is there. But who was the neighbor so afraid of? In my personal opinion, that shadow is the kid player. It's either the reason of fear and that's why the child is symbolized by the shadow creature, or, well, there was no kid player model at the time and they had to put something there. Because we only see the shadow of this character anyway. Neighbor is crying in the living room in this ending scene. His wife died in this storyline too, and he's left alone with his small son, the player. The son who is listening to his father crying from the other room. The neighbor, while obviously not being afraid of his own child, he could be afraid of the fact that he's now on his own with his kid. That he may fall into the same trap his father fell into. This storyline focused on generational trauma, generations in a family passing down trauma from one to another in a never-ending cycle. The thing in Alpha 4 appears in the basement when you progress towards the end of the build. Under this painting in a lit up door, leading the player that way. You could say that this painting has no importance. Of course it does. It's one of the most important symbolical stuffs in the game at the time. On the painting's back, you could read that the apple doesn't fall from its tree, which refers back to generational trauma. The child isn't as different from his father, this is what it means. The cycle of traumas is passed down from father to son, and it continues endlessly. Since player is trying to break this traumatic cycle and not become like his father was, who he is so afraid of, that's the point of the game at this time, fear itself appears at the door, but the only way forward is through that door itself. So you enter the door, you visibly have to go towards the fear to defeat it. And then the game ends with this cutscene. This shadow figure can also be found on the field too. I think this was just an Easter egg because at the time you could get out of the bounds and just discover the surroundings. I think this one has no importance to the story. Firstly, I want to show you this trailer. I will quickly just explain it. So here player is reliving his traumas that his father, the neighbor, caused him, while suddenly the neighbor is hiding with him in a closet or somewhere else. In this symbolical dreamlike scene, adult player is involved, since he is the one trying to overcome fear itself. He is in the neighbor's memory. The man's clearly showing him something. In the trailer, it's not showing actually, but in the mod kit, it's clear as day that the thing passes by at the corridor. The neighbor is hiding from it, and so does the player. That's when the player realizes that they are both afraid of something with his father. They have more in common than he first thought. It also foreshadows the fact that the neighbor isn't the real enemy, but the thing is. Beta 1 to 3 is more or less the same stuff, and it concludes the family storyline in Beta 3. In the scrapped Beta 3 ending, which was available in the Beta 3 mod kit itself, we do know that the player ended up breaking the cycle of generational trauma, meaning that he didn't become like his father did. He beat the fear of his own father entered his core memories, and he also freed the neighbor's soul from the weight of fear. What weight of fear? Well, the fear of him being aware that he was a horrible father, even though he absolutely didn't want to be. By forgiving him in the end, the player can move towards a better future, and the neighbor's soul is finally resting. They are both free. Neighbor in this story was a victim, just like the player was. I know it's a very hard pill to swallow for some people, but that's what the game is telling us. Yeah, and then the publisher said to this storyline that it's too cliche. So they just scrapped the whole thing. Yeah, let's just not talk about generational trauma, I guess. But back to these builds, the thing is appearing throughout the game itself multiple times. It first appears in the gramophone cutscene, which is to reveal the kid neighbor who's being afraid ever since he was a little child. This habit of us finally learning something about the kid neighbor's story and life, and then the whole thing being scrapped, stayed in future storylines. Yes, I'm looking at Hello Neighbor 2. I think the thing could be called something else here. Father. The neighbor was terrified of, most likely, his father, but eventually, when he grew up and became a man, he unwillingly became just like him. Passing down the same trauma, terror and pain onto his son, the neighbor didn't have a good example on how to raise a child, and after his wife dies, he just possibly falls into agony and depression, so you kind of understand why he became basically a horrible father. We don't exactly know details, as the neighbor we see is the neighbor who's living in the player's memory. The actual real neighbor is dead when the player moves back to the house and the whole game begins. Player, while slowly but surely entering the neighbor's subconscious symbolically, since the house along with the basement is symbolizing that, by the way, discovers that his father was in fact afraid, and what exactly his father was afraid of. Like, what caused the generational trauma for the neighbor. That's why this cutscene is critical to understand and critical to view. It's basically the most important thing story-wise. The thing also appears in the Fear minigames, always watching the player. In Fear Supermarket, it's near the ceiling. Fear Supermarket possibly symbolizes the fear of being in crowded places. In Fear Darkness, it is at the end of the level, and when you completed the minigame, you need to jump towards it. You are always going towards fear itself because you want to beat it. You are afraid of it, but at the same time, you want to destroy it. This minigame is possibly symbolizing the fear of being in small, tight spaces, as player was most likely close to the pantry as a child. This here is not a basement, that's a pantry, which has so many memories they could fill a basement. Fear School is the fear of being bullied. The thing watches you from high up, looking down at you. And there was also Fear Factory, but since it was scrapped, there is not much known about it. Maybe it was the fear of being judged or pulled into something against your own will. You must play as the mannequins are ordering to be able to progress towards the exit, and even there the thing was watching you. So the game ended with player beating the giant neighbor, aka his huge fear of his father, and then he realized that this was not his goal. It is the thing who must be beaten. Him and the neighbor are both afraid, and here neighbor is a little innocent kid. He's not doing anything wrong on purpose. He's just a small child being tortured and terrorized by fear itself, chased into paranoia, eventually becoming the horrible adult he probably was, at least in the player's memories. We see that. Again, the neighbor we see is in the player's memory. So player defeats the thing, aka the ultimate fear. And while doing so, he grows every time in height. He prevents the thing from getting to his father. Every time he protects the neighbor, he grows taller, symbolizing that he grows bigger than the fear itself. And suddenly, poof, the thing is just gone. And his father's soul is free, and the player is free as well. He breaks the cycle of generational trauma, and he can start a happier life. Good ending. And then this whole story was scrapped. In the final game, both Theodore and Nikki can see the thing because they are both afraid. The final game of Hello Neighbor is chaos. It's chaos because the fear minigames stayed the exact same, like they were in the family storyline, but their meaning in the final storyline changed. They are just there to take gameplay time, I guess. They made more sense in the family storyline, which they were created for. I mean, okay, Nikki defeats his smaller fears as a side quest, cool. They even made up excuses in the books for these minigames to be there. In the actual final story, like the one we have today, the thing is there in the beginning of Act 3, taking a form, but like I said, it's not a physical form that you could be touching. It's a forever changing, symbolical, glitching form. Could be some kind of hallucination if you want to put it like that. It's not actually there in reality. Nikki thinks he saw something, but he's visibly disturbed by his distorted memories, and eventually he decides to go to sleep and leave everything behind, and that's when his process to overcome his fears in his mind begins. He must face the fear he was putting behind for years if he wants to defeat it. So like I said, in all storylines, the player is progressing towards the thing, aka fear, to defeat it, and the final storyline isn't exception either. The final fight is mostly the same gameplay-wise like it was in Beta 3. Nikki defeats the giant neighbor, aka his fear of the neighbor character, and then he realizes that there's much more behind the man himself, and he's not the real enemy. The fight against the thing is the same gameplay-wise, except the kid neighbor is now replaced with Kid Nikki, but the voice and everything stay the same, so it's kind of sad to see it if you know what's going on in Beta 3. Here, basically, Nikki protects his child self from fear and not the neighbor, because Nikki's got his amount of trauma and fear as a child. Here, he also overgoes the fear, and poof, fear is gone, defeated. He eventually ends up in the middle of nothing, only with an exit door in the distance. Except, as we saw during the cutscenes, adult Nikki does figure out that the neighbor saw the thing too. He knows that the neighbor was afraid of something as well. Neighbor's own fear is losing the family member he's left and his secret being found out, which would result his son being taken away from him. And this fear took a form, and now Nikki as an adult knows why everything happened. Why was he forced to stay in the basement as a child so he couldn't talk to his parents or the police about what he saw there? And what he saw there wasn't the truth to begin with, because only now, at age 32, did he find out the absolute truth about the neighbor. He realizes why was the neighbor in such pain. He finds out the truth at age 32 and eventually finds the neighbor himself still locked up with his own fear. This is also symbolical, like the house and the fear and everything. Just like in the previous storyline, the neighbor wasn't strong enough to defeat fear on his own and he failed. But this time, Nikki cannot save him. He can do anything but leave through that door. And this is exactly why I hate this ending. Of course, I want to help the neighbor. Of course, I want to beat the out of the thing, because I could do it in the other storyline. Nikki is empathetic enough to have the will to help. Nikki is wondering what happened to Theodore after the kid has escaped from his basement, now that he knows the truth and that the neighbor isn't actually as bad as he thought before. This is why I'm non-stop parroting that Nikki and Theodore should meet in Hello Neighbor 3. Neighbor has to tell him the truth, because how else would Nikki get to know the truth anyway? There's no other person but the neighbor who could tell him the objective truth that he discovers in the first Hello Neighbor. He does get to know the ultimate truth, and the only person who can tell it to him is Theodore. So they should talk it over like two adult men, and boom! No more fear, and the game would end on a normal tone for once. But back to the original Hello Neighbors ending, you can even miss the whole ending scene with the house and the neighbor stuck in there and just leave and start a happier life. Except, if you think about it, Nikki is still broke as hell. He has no job. He has just moved back to a dying town, to a huge house he has to maintain. But don't worry, everything will be alright, except probably not. I'm his age, I'm just as broke, and I have no future. Cool! As we know, secret neighbor is happening in the kid's mind. Yes, if the neighbor transforms from a kid into the neighbor, or if you shoot the neighbor with the shotgun, killing him, for 1 second the thing appears. It means that the kid's fear manifests in the form of the neighbor, or the thing shapeshift into the neighbor, or at least something they think the neighbor could be. It's not the real neighbor, as the whole setup isn't real. And there could be something similar with Hello Neighbor Diaries. The shadow neighbor could be symbolizing fear, but I think they just wanted to make the neighbor scarier in the basement levels, so they just deleted all of his textures and gave him like glowing eyes. Good for him. It was made by different people. The fact that Aaron and Mia appear as shadowy figures in Nikki's memories, like in the original Hello Neighbor, could be unrelated and an artistic choice to show how blurry Nikki's memories are, because they basically didn't know each other in the original Hello Neighbor. So these shadowy figures are unrelated to the thing, I think. And as far as I know, the cartoon just messed up the symbolism and made it too difficult to understand. It's a complicated mess, so I'm not willing to talk about it. As conclusion, the thing symbolizes fear. That's it. It's a symbol. It's not a physical creature. This is why it's non-stop changing its shape and size. It can be small, hiding behind a corner, and it can be huge and destroying the player. It can be defeated, as we see in the final fight, and it can also stay with the victim, as we see in the final scene with the neighbor. The thing appears for everybody who's afraid of something. They don't need to be afraid of the same thing. It just has to be something they fear of. Also, Nikita confirmed like 3 times that the thing is fear itself, so yeah. And the thing won't return in Hello Neighbor 3, which is absolutely good news, even though everybody and their dog is afraid in that game so far. But Nikita is right. I don't want to see this creature ever again. It was more than enough for people who can relate. Man, this game is still heavy as f. Thank you so much for watching this video, if you got this far. If you liked it, then press the like button, I guess, and subscribe for more Hello Neighbor lore videos. And also, the biggest help for me would be if people just kind of shared my videos here and there. Obviously not spamming, just share them if you talk about the topics, because as you can see, I'm pretty much flopping with the views. See you in the next video. Bye.